This podcast is based on the German podcast Föhr nach New York, Eine Auswanderergeschichte. Föhr to New York, an emigration story. By Honig&Gold, NDR Schleswig-Holstein, and the Ferring Foundation of Föhr from the year 2024.
Föhr to New York, an emigration story. This is the 4th episode. If you haven't heard the first ones yet, it's best to start with them.
Hi, I'm Bente Faust. In this podcast, I tell you the story of my grandparents who emigrated from Föhr to New York almost 100 years ago and later came back to Föhr. By the way, I called Inge Urmam, which is the Frisian word for grandmother. For this podcast, I went in search of clues. I visited places in New York where my grandparents lived. I talked to relatives and friends in New York and, of course, on Föhr. Inge is back on Föhr in our story, together with her family. She's now 13. Only her father Revert has remained in New York. The stock market has just crashed and the economy is in a tailspin. Revert, therefore, wants to sell his deli in the Bronx as quickly as possible and follow suit. However, that's not going as quickly as he had thought.
Föhr to New York, an emigration story. A podcast by Honig&Gold and the Ferring Foundation of Föhr. This is the 4th episode, a boxing match and a love letter.
When Inge arrives on the island in 1935, she is very happy, even though her father, Revert, is still in New York. She is delighted to see her friends and relatives again and is only barely homesick for the U.S. There are only a few things she misses. She quickly writes a letter to her father, believing that he will arrive on Föhr in a few weeks.
Dear Daddy, when you come, please bring some Nestle chocolate bars with you. The more you can take, the better. I also wish you would take some chewing gum along. I am very glad that you have such a good clerk. I hope you sell the store soon.
Unfortunately, Umam will not get chocolate bars or chewing gum. Her hope that her father Revert will sell the store soon will also not come to pass. On Föhr, people wait a long time for Revert. It takes more than a year. He doesn't arrive until Christmas 1936, and then only for a visit. He then returns immediately to New York and redoubles his effort to sell his deli.
In the meantime, Inge returns to school, this time on Föhr, and twice a week attends Christian confirmation classes. She is really looking forward to the confirmation ceremony, when she will finally be allowed to wear the magnificent Frisian costume and become a full member of the community.
And here on Föhr, if you're confirmed, you're a young woman, and then we were allowed to go to the dance.
Want to dance? While people in New York are dancing to swing music at extravagant parties in huge clubs, the dances on Föhr are what one might call more dignified. Dance parties take place every Sunday and rotate between locations in pubs like the Friesenthal in Övenum and the Gasthof in Olsum. In a letter, the relatives from Föhr report back to the Americans.
Today was a big day here. It's Pentecost and the young people are going out. There were 14 cars and then a band in Nibelum. Then there was coffee and cake in Övenum. Later, we went dancing at Max's. At the end, they were still celebrating somewhere privately. The young people have a very nice time here.
Basically, nothing has changed in the way of celebrating. It was the same for me. I was confirmed with my boys from Süderende at the age of 15 and went ut to keren for the first time the same year. That means going out, at Whitsun with a horse-drawn carriage. In good company, you drive across the island, drinking lots of cognac and coke and singing songs. After that, it's off to the dance. There are a few festivals that had been around for ages. Many people from the island of Föhr in exile come back to the island for them. These includes the Bike bonfire on February 21st and the annual fair in the fall. There's also the Markels Festival.
Hermann has just turned 17, has finished middle school, and has persuaded his father to let him go to sea. And this is what he now does. First as a ship's boy, then as an ordinary seaman. He works mostly on standard cargo ships navigating the Baltic Sea.
In 1936, Grandpa Hermann is spending his shore leave on Föhr. I can easily imagine him seeing Ulmam at the dance. The two had already met as children in 1931, when Inge was on Föhr for the first time. And now they are teenagers and suddenly face each other on the dance floor in the Friesental. On one side, the tan sailor on shore leave. On the other side, the shy blonde girl from New York. It's almost like in the movies. But I can imagine that both are pretty shy. It takes a while before they really start chatting.
A few days later, Hermann is back on board his ship, on his way to what was then Königsberg. He sends a letter to his parents.
Dear parents and sister, we arrived here safely a few days ago. We started discharging, and tomorrow we will depart empty to Malmö. From there to Denmark. We spent Christmas in Hamburg. Now we are in Königsberg. On New Year's Eve, I was at a sailor's home. There we first got kale. Then there was coffee with apple pie and donuts. And now we get grog and sparkling wine. It was a very nice evening. I have to steer every evening on board. The old man says I'm a good helmsman. There are 5 of us on the crew now. I've become a watchman, so I have plenty of time to write. As a watchman, you do a lot of overtime and can rest during the day. I'll finish by saying I hope you're doing well and staying healthy. Best wishes, Hermann.
On May 27th, 1936, while Hermann is out sailing the Baltic Sea, a ship the likes the world has never seen before is being put into service in Southampton, England, the Queen Mary. It is the largest, most luxurious, and fastest steamship of its time. Thousands of people have come to admire the giant ship. British Cunard White Star Limited's brand new steamer will take to the sea, together with its sister ship, Elizabeth, on a weekly express service between Southampton, Cherbourg, and New York. Because of its tremendous speed, it will be of central importance during the Second World War. The Queen Mary will also play an important role in Hermann's life, albeit a very different one than he might have imagined when he first heard about this luxury liner in Königsberg. In the same year, Hermann signs on to sail with the Poseidon, a cargo steamer of the Hamburg shipping company Leitz, a ship without any luxury whatsoever. He sails as far as South America, and on October 29, 1936, crosses the equator for the first time in his life. On this momentous occasion, Hermann receives a special kind of baptism. Neptune, king of the seas, rubs fish oil, shaving cream, and other smelly things on his body.
I found the certificate which Hermann received for his equator baptism in a box in the attic in Süderende. At first, I thought it was a children's drawing. The certificate shows a fearsome Neptune with his trident. Next to him, Poseidon in full flight. Behind them, a South Sea island with palm trees and monkeys, all drawn with colored pencils, and above it all, a large red and white flag with a swastika. Swastikas were suddenly popping up everywhere at the time. His Siemens book was stamped with one from 1936, and I found a belt buckle in the attic where someone had tried to grind away the swastika, but you can still clearly see it when you turn the buckle. I'd like to know how Grandpa felt about it. Did he think the Nazis were cool or rather scary? I don't know.
This summer in New York, everyone is crazy about boxing. Max Schmeling, 30 years old, ex-world heavyweight champion, and one of the most popular sportsmen in Germany, is to fight 22-year-old Joe Louis on June 19th, 1936 at New York's Yankee Stadium. Joe Louis, known as the Brown Bomber, is the idol of the African-American population. He has won 27 of 27 fights and is considered unbeatable. This fight is about more than just winning in the ring. World politics are in play here. America against Germany. Hitler is Schmeling's biggest fan, and Schmeling is Hitler's model athlete. On both sides of the Atlantic, people gather in front of their radios. This June 19th is certainly also a big day for the Föhrer community in New York. We don't know where Inge's father followed the fight, but it was probably from the deli. The atmosphere in Yankee Stadium is electric, 42,000 spectators in all. When the bell rings for the first round, it appears as though Louis has the upper hand. He dominates the fight and hits Schmeling hard, but Schmeling can take a lot and remains on his feet. In the fourth round, Schmeling's chance comes. He attacks with a deadly double punch. Louis goes down for the first time in his career, but he gets up again and holds out for many rounds. Finally, in round 12, Louis is KO'd and loses the fight. Schmeling is not only Hitler's favorite athlete, but is also the poster child for the upcoming Olympic Games in Berlin. On August 1st, the greatest games the world has ever seen open in Berlin's Olympic Stadium. Gigantic, imposing, German. Germany wants to demonstrate to the world what the self-proclaimed master race is capable of. In the run-up to the Games, there are already protests and efforts to boycott them, especially from the Americans. The games that the Nazis orchestrate run smoothly, and despite the circumstances, with a steady focus on athleticism. Anti-Semitic slogans disappear from the cityscape, and agitation against Jews is banned in the media for the duration of the Games. The Nazis know exactly what image they want the world to see. Hitler's plan works. As was almost to be expected, the Germans win 89 medals. The USA follows in second place. Their August 16th paper, the New York Times, writes about the outcome of the Games. The Germans themselves seem to have taken some lessons to heart, and visitors are getting a good impression.
In the late summer of 1936, Inge's father, Yves, is still in New York, much to the family's chagrin. He just can't find a buyer for the deli. And without the money from the sale, he can't afford a new start in Germany. Inge, meanwhile, is graduating from school on the island. She is being confirmed and is surely seeing a lot of Hermann these days.
He keeps coming to the island between his trips, perhaps even deliberately to run into Inge by chance. But his visits to Föhr are usually brief. In 1937, Hermann sails with the training ship Admiral Karpfanger to train as an officer. He aims for the rank of captain, just like his father and his grandfather before. His first voyage takes him to Boston. But then, as soon as it had begun, his career as a captain suddenly comes to an end, as Hermann is diagnosed with red-green deficiency. With this color vision issue, he is barred from commanding a ship since, as in traffic, red and green are the most important colors at sea.
This must have been a bitter pill to swallow for Grandpa Hermann. Just like his grandfather and father, he wanted to go to sea as a captain someday. And now this. But maybe he just thought, ad as, us war das. This is a typical Frisian saying that simply means, it is what it is. This pragmatic attitude, you can't change it, so stop complaining, is typical for Frisian people. But if you take a closer look at this situation, Grandpa Hermann was extremely lucky to leave the training ship.
As it happens, his color blindness saves his life. The Karpfanger disappears shortly thereafter off the coast of Cape Horn. The waters at the tip of South America are considered the most dangerous in the world, and the weather conditions are brutal. This is where the Atlantic and the Pacific collide. The area is the largest ship graveyard in the world. Over 800 ships have sunk here, and more than 10,000 sailors have drowned. And so is the fate of the Karpfanger. Not a single crew member survives. In Hamburg, a number of new warships are being launched these days, and Hitler is often one of the guests of honor. Hermann's sister-in-law, who is currently on her way back to New York from Föhr, is also present at one of these launches. She later recalls,
Grandpa Lawrence and Aunt Inke took us to the ship in Hamburg. That day, Hitler gave his speech at the shipyards. It was very frightening. I couldn't wait to get away from there.
In remote Husum, Clara, Inge, and their sisters are only vaguely aware of all that is taking place. Clara also has other things on her mind. She is about to give birth to her fourth daughter. Johanna comes into the world on September 1st, 1937. You will meet her a little later in the story. Inge regularly writes to her father, Yves, in New York, but not often enough, as she admits in April 1937.
Dear Daddy, I guess you've been waiting for a letter for some time. I really am ashamed of myself that I didn't write before this. I am so sorry that you found the store in such a bad condition. It's no wonder that you don't like to be there anymore. I said to Mama, I would go over if you wanted me to come.
Mom offers her father to come to New York, and that's what she does. In January 1938, she travels across the Atlantic again. She's supposed to help Rivert. Money for stuff is tight, and any help is welcome.
You can now hear Inge saying this in Frisian.
Tiden vi så första klasse för teenager i en jule, and he had O'Sullivan massiskieren, aber he could ein say when it did inkommen, wo wat kuppe, and you would uns wie your blood lebensmittel.
Inge says that nobody was making money anymore. Her father couldn't get rid of his business, and he had a lot of debts of his own. Inge remembers how people had bought from the store on credit.
Efter skulle ich dir jemand anbieten, die en kassiere. Also, ich wusste dann genau, wann der Mann bezahlt fing, und dann ging ich an, und ich sagte, ich skulle Geld haben.
Then she was supposed to go to the people and collect. She knew exactly when payday came for the men. And on that day, she would go to their door and tell them she needed the money.
Und ich sagte mir mit 10% den von dem, was ich kassiert hätte für mich. You know, rough good. The mother joke, no.
When they paid up, she got 10%. She liked that. After a few weeks in New York, she receives a letter from her mother.
My dear great Inge, by the time you receive this letter, you will already be in the promised land. Hopefully you had a nice trip and you didn't get seasick. Dear Inge, I miss you very much, and it feels like you've been gone forever. It's good that I'm always so busy that I don't have time to think. But when I look at Johanna, the heavy thoughts vanish. Every evening, my last thought is with you and with your father, and I fall asleep with that thought. You must now also make it as comfortable as possible for father, because he has also had some lonely and difficult years.
Inge's mother, Clara, was once again alone on Föhr with 3 small children, just as she had been 10 years earlier. In fact, there would never come a time when both parents and all 4 daughters were together for the Ketelsen family. No Christmas together, no birthday with 6 people around the table. Someone is always on the road.
While Inge does her first early shifts in her father's deli, preparing salads, Hermann Rickmers on Föhr does not really know what to do, with his seafaring career coming to such a sudden end. He is now 19 years old, of draft age. Hitler had already reintroduced mandatory military service years earlier and was now recruiting millions of young men. His army was already on the move. The demilitarized zone in the Rhineland had been occupied since 1936. In September of that year came the beginning of the destruction of Czechoslovakia with the incorporation of the Sudetenland. Tensions are running high in Europe. Hitler's aggressive and fanatical gestures towards his neighbors do not bode well. And Hermann is now faced with the decision of his life: military service or emigration.
At this point of the story, I always ask myself, when was the point of no return? At what point could they have still turned around things? As a German society, or Europe, or perhaps as individuals, the signs and the critical voices were there. Why did the masses overlook and ignore them and elect the Nazis to power? And what about today? In many countries, including the USA, you could say fascist ideas are on the rise. And in Germany, there's a party that is classified by the Office for the Protection of the Constitution as a right-wing extremist suspect case and is still celebrating huge successes. Why is that? I find that quite frightening. How did Grandpa Hermann feel about it back then? Was he taken in by the Nazi propaganda? Or did he see the danger? I would like to discuss these questions with him today, but that's not possible since he died when I was 7. I know from my uncle's telling that my other grandfather was a Nazi and made a career in the Luftwaffe.
Hermann decides against joining the army and emigrates to the US. There, he sees a new opportunity for himself. He can work as a clerk for his oldest brother Joe in the deli in Brooklyn. Of course, there is another factor that favors New York. Inge is already there. In March 1938, Hermann arrives in New York on the passenger ship St. Louis. Now, the 4 brothers, Teddy, Joe, John, and Hermann, are together in one place for the first time since they were children on Föhr. The Jewish community in New York is concerned about developments in Germany. The newspapers are full of reports of anti-Semitic attacks. In 1938, long lines form outside the consulates in Germany. The terror and the open hatred are now so bad that Jews just want to get out of the country regardless of where they go. But more and more countries are closing their borders to Jewish immigrants. The United States also has strict immigration laws that have been in place since 1924, and the government does not change them even as tens of thousands of Jews flee the Nazis. One example is the St. Louis, the ship on which Hermann had traveled to New York. The passenger ship is turned away in Cuba in May 1939 with more than 900 Jewish refugees on board, and is not permitted to dock in the U.S. or Canada either. Because of this, the St. Louis has to return to Europe. The captain brings the ship to land in Antwerp. It is said that more than a quarter of the Jews on board subsequently perished in the Holocaust. Hermann has no problem adjusting to his new surroundings and daily routine. He likes Queens and no longer misses his career as a captain. He doesn't have time to mope anyways. His shift starts at 7 in the morning. He serves customers or delivers food on his bike. A photo shows Hermann on one of his first days of work in the spring of '38. He is sitting on a delivery bike with Rickmers and Hinrichsen Delikatessen written in the middle of the frame. A large basket is mounted in front of the handlebars. Hermann's 4-year-old niece is sitting on the bar. Both look proud in their white clothes. He is freshly shaved and wearing his typical white apron, neatly and freshly ironed. She is wearing a white dress and white sneakers with her blonde hair wound into corkscrew curls. When Hermann has time off, he enjoys New York. Once a week, he goes bowling with his brothers, or they drive to Manhattan to the German Quarter. He will soon be part of the Föhr community.
Hermann is interested in one particular Frisian deli, the one belonging to Yves Ketelsen in the Bronx. Delicious food aside, Hermann is more interested in his daughter, 16-year-old Inge. Hermann is quick to find a reason to stop by the deli.
And I was terribly shy, I have to say. Then he came into the store and had a friend with him. I didn't go out at all.
Whenever Inge hears Hermann's voice in the shop, she gets excited and her heart pounds. And then, one day, while her father is in the back, Hermann seizes his chance and approaches Inge. He has something for her.
I was so embarrassed, I blushed all over. And I left right away. And then he wrote me a love letter, written with green ink. I would have always thrown him such loving eyes. That's very sweet.
Green written letters, as sweet as can be. Words don't come easy. L-O-V-E. I never thought I'd meet the perfect guy. Suddenly you walked through that door with the most beautiful eyes. You made me blush, I started to stutter. I didn't know what to say, but you came with green ink love letters, and this happened every day.
A love letter? Written with green ink? How did you come up with that?
Well, I don't think he did it on purpose. Hermann was colorblind, right? Red, green, blue, for him, it was all the same.
By the way, it's the same with me. I inherited it.
In any case, sweet. But now back to the text.
Okay.
Walk through that door. Handsome, brown skin, this beautiful.
Inge told me at some point in her old age, she burned all the letters because she didn't want anyone else to read them. Except for this one. But I don't know where it is. Maybe I find it one day.
Hermann and Inge now meet up more often. The two of them go out together and explore New York. They go to the movies or to Café Geiger, the favorite cafe of many young Frisians. In a letter, Inge writes to her mother and sisters.
We go out a lot here. Last Sunday was Margie's birthday. We celebrated properly. We had a very nice time. We had 7 bowls of punch, and they had put Applejack in it, so we all got quite a hangover. On Wednesday, I went Easter shopping with Hermann. I wanted to get a 3-piece suit. In the evening, the two of us went sailing and had a picnic.
On the other side of the Atlantic, things are looking up. In Germany, the Führer and the country's regained stature in Europe are being celebrated frenetically, while the rest of the world looks on in horror. Hitler's claim to power has long extended beyond Germany's borders, and nothing and no one seems to be able to stop him. Meanwhile, the armed forces have been massively rearmed, and Hermann is glad that he is not part of it. On June 22nd, 1938, a legendary fight will be reenacted in New York. The Brown Bomber, Joe Louis, challenges Max Schmeling to a rematch. He wants the title, and he wants victory for his people and his country. It's a spectacle that's even more charged than that of 1936. Hitler wants to again show the world the supposed superiority of the Aryans, but the Americans don't want to have the show stolen from them again. 70,000 spectators come to Yankee Stadium to witness the fight of the century. Inge works at the deli. It's a few miles from Yankee Stadium. She can likely hear the crowd shouting as she works in the back kitchen.
A left to the head, a left to the jaw, a right to the head, and Donovan is...
En ik kijk efter radio, dus als we buiten ons geschäft, wo je die boxcam 4, en dan kwam hij in en weer daar voorbij.
Carefully, Lewis measured him, right to the body, a left up to the jaw, and Schmeling is down.
Inge remembers that night. They listened to the fight in the back of the deli on the radio, while her father was serving customers up front. By the time he joined them to listen to the broadcast, the fight was already over and Joe Louis had won in one round.
Max Schmeling is beaten in one round.
After 3 minutes and full knockout.
Black people came into the streets and celebrated the victory. They were ecstatic. Although Inge had only arrived a few months earlier to help revert in the deli, her father decides at short notice that they should return to Föhr, despite his not having sold the shop. Revert is finally fed up. He has been trying to find someone to take over his shop for 3 years, to no avail.
He just shut the door. You could say that. He didn't sell at all.
When Inge tells Hermann about this, he is desperate. Will this be the end of his love story with Inge after such a short time? In 1938, the Nazis openly indulged their anti-Semitism. The situation climaxes with the pogroms of November 9th, during which hundreds of Jews are killed and tens of thousands interned throughout the German Reich. Synagogues burn, Jewish cemeteries are destroyed, shops and homes are looted. 2 days later, violence against Jews also breaks out on Föhr. The Vic SA gathers in the schoolyard in the darkness. The mob heads towards the Jewish children's home on Gmelinstrasse. The children of the home are to be seen off. They are made to gather in the courtyard and endure a hateful speech. Their former classmates and fellow students are also in attendance. Their teacher, an SS member, encourages the non-Jewish students to form a line through which the Jewish children have to walk while being insulted and spat on. Today, so-called Stolpersteine, or commemorative stones in the sidewalk, remind us of the horrors of the Nazis on Föhr. One is in Boldixum in memory of Christine Jürgensen and another of Elisa von Biela in Vic.
Inge is supposed to move back to Föhr with her father, but she wants to stay in New York. It might have been humiliating for her to return to the island after only a few months. Or was Hermann her reason to want to stay?
My father then went back to Germany, and I begged him to let me stay for at least a year.
And Inge gets her way.
And then he got me a job in a delicatessen owned by his cousin. And I worked there for $10 a week. Board and lodging were free. And he bought me a ticket for September. I was supposed to come back then. But the war started a few weeks before, and I couldn't come back.
On September 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. It is the beginning of World War II. Inge is now trapped in the United States since ships no longer sail to Germany.
What a drastic situation for Inge. She had stood up to her father in such an important decision. She probably thought, if I could travel alone from New York to Föhr when I was 9, then I can certainly live alone in New York when I'm 16. And then the war breaks out and changes everything. And now again, from my father's perspective, is one glad that you didn't take your child to a country that just started a war? Or do you blame yourself for leaving the child behind alone in such times? I don't know. I wonder what Rivat thought. He was probably torn inside. That was the 4th episode of the podcast Föhr to New York, an immigration story. It is currently at Inge alone in New York. Almost. Fortunately, Hermann is still there. And things are getting serious for the two of them in the next episode. But unfortunately, also in the rest of the world. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please check the show notes for my email address. Föhr to New York is a podcast by Honig&Gold in cooperation with the Ferring Foundation. I am Bente Faust. Production Honig&Gold. Idea, book and direction Daniel Hauptmann and me, Bente Faust. Music and sound design Boy Cassidy. Project management Ferring Foundation Robert Klei. Research Daniel Hauptmann, Bente Faust and Kreske Ingwersen. Fact-checking Yves Müller and Ute Maack. Cover illustration Jana Alu. Recorded at Off Your Tree Studio in Hamburg. Speakers Morgan Finlay, Valerie von Hornbach, Jeremiah and Marlon Costello. Translation Inke Rickmers and Morgan Finlay. By the way, you can find the podcast also in a German and a Ferring version.